Good evening. Thank you for joining us for Channel 17's Town Meeting Day coverage as we continue to work through municipalities across our state and the focuses that voters should be thinking about as they head to the polls on March the 3rd. Between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. you can go do your civic participation. Spring is in the air, so is democracy, and it's time to get educated and know what you're going to be looking at when you go to those polls. We are filming this live on February the 19th on Wednesday. So if you're watching at home, you can call us at 862-3966. And we are extremely excited to welcome two candidates who are going to be very nice to each other because they're running unopposed from the town of Williston tonight. Yeah, that's a good sign. That's usually a sign you're doing a pretty good job. Or the job is questionable.
It's good for us. I'm not also sure it's good for democracy.
That's true. Yeah. But thank you both for coming here tonight, because that's a statement in and of itself that you're coming to explain why you're excited to serve and what you're looking forward to this year. So we welcome Jeff Fehrs, who's running for a 3-year term, and Joy Limoge, who's running for a 2-year term. So welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm Seth, Leonard, excited to moderate this evening. And the first question everybody wants to know, what's your pothole? Why are you running? What got you motivated to get involved, and what's making you want to run this year?
Yeah, and you're going to defer.
Go first, please.
I have been fortunate enough to be a Williston resident for the last, 22 plus years, and served on various boards and committees. And this will be my 3rd term on the select board. And it has been an honor and an absolute privilege. We have an amazing board. All of us have been together now for a few years. We've had fantastic town management. And it's a real luxury to serve someplace where the people are so respectful, so good about listening to different views, getting a consensus. And I think that we really come together hard to support the town and support the residents of the town.
Absolutely agree. We have diversity on the board, and we do at times disagree, but we always do it in a very respectful and way. And I think that disagreement, or when we do have disagreements, it's a good thing.
I think everybody's learned from everybody's differing viewpoints.
Yeah, so me. I'm one of the old guys on the select board. I've been on the select board for 20 some odd years now. I'm not sure exactly how many terms that ends up being. But more important than that is I think I'm still excited, I'm energized, and I think that there's still a lot that needs to be done and that I can help do that. Just as important is when it comes to the issues, I listen and I try to understand both sides of it so that when I make a decision, I feel like I'm making the best decision for Williston. And I think the other piece of it is we have a big void to fill with the town manager leaving.
Yes, we do.
And I very much would like to be part of that process of choosing what I trust will be the next Rick McGuire.
It's a big decision.
A big decision, big shoes to fill, but I'm sure it's possible.
That's great.
Yeah. In terms of qualifications, I think I just went through them. So
great.
Don't know what else to add.
And this is a full-time paid job with benefits,
right?
Gosh,
yeah.
Town Select Board?
There are times it does feel not full-time, but it does eat up some time.
Sure.
But no, it's very part-time.
I'm sure the community is appreciative of both of your energy and that you're bringing to the table and your willingness to do that. So you mentioned Rick McGuire. We actually just wrapped up a session that folks can follow along with that coverage and other coverage on CCTV Channel 17's website or YouTube channel. You can watch the Williston Town Budget presentation. So one of our first questions is, tell us your reflections of the budget. You guys have seen it and probably have helped shepherd it through. So tell us how you feel about it and what your thoughts are on the budget.
Okay. Yeah, we have seen it inside and out. We do dissect the budget, and one of the things we get is a very detailed breakdown of the budget, and probably not totally honest to say we go through it line by line, but we go through it pretty close. We look at all aspects of the town. I think the most important thing to leave you and people watching with about the budget is It's a small increase in terms of expenditures, less than 2%. I think it's 1.5%. And correspondingly, it's a small, I think, acceptable increase in the tax rate, again, under 2%. I think there it ends up being about 1.8%, but it's still providing the same basic level of service. In fact, in some cases, a slight increase in the level of services provided.
Great. Any reflections?
I echo that. I'm really proud of the work that we do in the budget. We really work hard to have as little impact as possible on taxes. So I give our board huge credit for that, but really I give town management more. They really come together to try to make as minimal an impact. I watch the different services talk to each other to go, we need ABC this year, we need XYZ. Good, you have A, we'll have Z. We'll go next year and we'll figure something else out. That has been to such a benefit of the town, and I'm not sure even the residents realize just how much of that chatter goes back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely. Kudos to the town staff for the process they go through to prepare the budget just to get it to us, and to Rick, because I think he is he's pretty clear to him what it is we look for the budget when it comes to us, and then the fine massaging, if you will, that goes on at the end. So essentially, and you might hear this a couple times tonight, he makes our job a lot easier.
Yes, I totally echo that.
I think the numbers we heard in that presentation, about a half-penny increase, $300,000 home, maybe $24 per year. Sound about right in terms of increases. So it's a good time to remind folks you can visit the Williston town office or the website and find out information about how to vote. If you're sitting at home watching this and want to vote for these two, there's still an opportunity to ensure that you're ready to go for town meeting day. Be sure that you're ready to participate. So the next big thing I think that probably drew a lot of news was the culvert washout and the borrowing of a bridge from the state. I had no idea the state could lend a bridge. But the Muddy Brook culvert on Marshall Avenue, people will also see that on your ballot item.
Me?
Sure.
Okay, we'll trade off.
Yeah.
Totally, obviously, in support of that. One of the things I think that I heard most from residents in the area was what happened when we didn't have that source of travel, and you don't realize how many people circumvent around that way, how clogged Williston Road ended up being. So I'm definitely in support of how this was done. I think it was done incredibly thoughtfully in terms of where can we get grants, how can we best do this, how can we split and share costs to have the most minimal impact on each town that's using it.
Yeah. The only thing I can add is absolutely, as most people know, it's a critical link with South Burlington, so absolutely has to happen. The other piece of it I think that's important is it won't be just a simple replacement. Actually, the new bridge, or it's not actually a bridge, it's a culvert, but the new bridge or bridge-like structure will have enhanced pedestrian facilities on it. Bicycle and pedestrian. That's a process, the scoping study that we participated with VTrans. So the $900,000 bond vote that's on the ballot, absolutely support. And not only support, it's necessary. Absolutely necessary.
I think we're too, South Burlington's picking up the other half of that tab, so it's a $1.8 million project from the municipal standpoint, separate from the state and federal dollars that are coming in to make that happen.
Correct.
That's great. Another item that folks oftentimes are interested in, the governing document that controls how your town was established and what the rules of order are for how governance goes, is the charter. And you've got 3 changes on the books for this go around. So I wondered if you guys wouldn't mind addressing what stood out about those 3 charter changes for you.
Okay, well, I'll start here. The concept of the charter is Williston is getting big enough now that the rules in which the state, I guess, for lack of better words, establishes for how we operate it just don't fit with us as well as they might be, let's say, with some other towns, maybe some towns that aren't as big or something like that. So I forget when, probably 10 years ago at least or so, we adopted a charter and got it through legislature. Now it's time to tweak some things with it. And so there are 3 items on the charter. on the ballot to be part of the charter. They were actually considering 4. I'll get to the 4th last. One has to do with, it's kind of an interesting piece of the charter if it gets through legislature, which basically says if a town has gotten their charter amendment approved and we adopt that same amendment, we don't have to go through legislature to get it approved. We just have to go through our local process. So it's a way to streamline, I guess, charter revisions in the future if another town has already gotten that same language through legislature. The second piece has to do with, drawing a blank. The library director and how that library director is hired. And essentially, it is the town manager working in conjunction with the library trustees to do that. A little bit more accurately, it's up to the town manager to recommend, and it's up to the trustees to either agree or disagree. And if they disagree, you have to move on to somebody else. And then the third one is has to do with how the town negotiates with the bargaining units and what happens if they can't come to an initial agreement. And there are several steps to follow through on that. Interesting, a 4th amendment was proposed, which was proposed by staff, which was to have change the language that's in the current charter, which I believe is also reflected in statute, of whether the trustees, quote unquote, manage the library or other language. And ultimately the select board listened to town staff, listened to the library trustees, but ended up, for lack of better words, siding with the library trustees and kept the language as it currently existed. So it is not on the ballot to be voted on.
Wow. I think all 3 of those are indicative of all the things, the decisions, the thousands of decisions that you all have to make every year and the mechanics behind making them. And a lot of them don't fly on people's radars, right? So.
True.
No, and I think we both support all 3 of those.
Yes.
Do you have anything to add on those items?
No, just like Jeff said, and then I guess probably what you were saying, there is a lot of chatter amongst the board. Everybody brings a different skill set. There's a couple of attorneys on there, there's a teacher on there, got an engineer on there, and so it's really interesting when you start getting those pieces in and you start figuring it out. So, no, they were good, solid decisions. A lot of talking, but good, solid decisions.
And then again, a plug for town staff. Under Rick's leadership, I mean, we get these packages that explain, what it is we're looking at, and the pros and cons type of information. So it really helps us make better decisions.
I think we need to do a shout out to Eric too.
Eric,
has really come a long way in terms of briefing us on stuff too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we both keep saying it, but they make our job so much easier than it has to be, because we get a lot of information to be able to go through, and if we had to start trying to pull that piece by piece, it would be overwhelming.
And Eric is an example of Rick's ability to pull good people into town staff.
And that's Eric Wells, right?
Right,
The
correct.
assistant town manager? That's great.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because he was the assistant to the town manager and then got a promotion which changed his title to assistant town manager. Of course, that makes me think of that TV show, The Office.
Yeah,
right?
that's good. The administrative. So just a reminder for folks, if you've got questions, you don't have to wait till town meeting day to participate. You can call us right now at 862-3966 if you're watching live at home. And also a reminder that on election night, after you cast your vote in a ballot, you can go home, jump on Channel 17, either via the website, on YouTube, or also on your television, and see the results come in, so you can know if these charter changes passed, and if, in fact, the legislator will be asked to say precedent is truly precedent. That'll be a fascinating one to watch. So another maybe complicating fact is there's going to be a number of towns that have a Champlain Water District bond request on there for what I think we're generally referring to as pump stations. Could you talk a little bit about that and prepare folks for what they're going to see on that and what it means for them?
I'm going to defer to you a little bit, just only because you've got
The engineer.
Yeah, he's got the engineering background, and then I'll chime in.
Again, not a full-time city or municipal leader. You also have a day job.
I do have a day job, yes. I think the simple answer is necessary infrastructure have to be not refurbished, I think is the correct word there. And so absolutely no doubt, Champlain Water District is our supplier of water. We buy it wholesale from the district, and their ability to maintain that system is critical. So as a member of the district, I highly support this.
And if folks are curious, the municipal budget, the municipalities all vote on their budget every year, so it's part of all of our processes as citizens that we actually do have a stake in that decision making. So let's look forward a little bit. There's all these things now on the table in the immediacy, but really that's work you've done to set up a ballot that people will now vote on. What's next? You guys are coming into new terms, a 3-year term and a 2-year term. Where do you see Williston in 5 years? What's exciting? What do you think are the challenges that lay ahead?
That's a big question. Well, when you're talking about the water district, the first thing that was coming to my mind was we're in a huge community growth thing. So you're seeing the town center, so to speak, which is our growth district, just expand astronomically. We've got a hotel coming in, we've got another store coming in, we've got restaurants, we've got housing. So I think the picture moving forward, especially in the next 2 to 3 years, is going to be a very changing landscape. And I know as a board, we have been very thoughtfully going into resources and things that are available to support that, so that we don't end up with a loss of services because we have so much growth there. Traffic studies, I don't know about you, Jeff, I get lots of phone calls or running into people in the bike paths worried about the traffic impact, or a small business going out because a larger business is coming in. So I think those are all, we're going to have some growing pains, I think, not in a bad way, just in a natural growing pain kind of way.
Yeah, I agree. I think the first thing we need to do is get through this hiring the new town manager, and so I have a feeling we're going to be very focused on that, at least for a while, in addition to everything else. But I think Joy's absolutely right, and what I'm starting to feel, and maybe I'm a little bit off base on this, but feel is folks are starting to get more, as they're looking at Williston and looking at the level of and the types of development that are going on, there are starting to be some questions asked, and the town plan is due to be revised within the next 2-3 years, I think it is. And so my crystal ball, as murky as it is that that's going to be a interesting town plan revision process. And we're already starting to feel, questions coming at us, along the lines of, why was this development allowed to do this, or is this right? And seeing a lot of, what's the right word, chatter on things like Front Porch Forum. And so my thought is, or hope in a sense is that in the next town plan, it might be a time to say, okay, here's where Williston is right now. Do we want to start to take some of those shifts in how our town plan has been set up in the past, to sort of start to tweak of where we want to go? I don't have an answer I don't know what the answer to that is, but I'm kind of looking forward to that process, to that input that comes in. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? How do we want to change some of the goals that have been in our town plan for quite a while now?
I'd add to that too, because we're moving to form-based code. And that's going to be a huge difference and a wonderful way to get a better visual of what we're doing and how it's working too. So I think community interaction is key. We're always stressing to people, please come to select board meetings. Please make a public comment and join in on that, so that we can hear what your interests are, how they are, and as a board we can try to advocate for you.
And it doesn't have to take a 500-unit 1983 project
exactly.
to get that attention. You mentioned form-based code. Just for folks at home, do you want to say just a 10-second blurb about what the
Mr.
thinking
Engineer,
behind that
please
is
put
about?
it in plain speak for us.
I thought the real estate attorney would do a better job. It's a different way to do zoning, and it more looks at, instead of the uses, it looks at what do you want it to feel like. So it's less use-based in regulating uses and details, and it's more based on what is what is the form or the feel we're trying to get for particular areas of our town.
That was well said.
Thank you. I think that's it's
Yeah.
the tricky part is going to be figuring out how do we put that into words, into our ordinances. But the select board felt this was so important that when we were doing our budget process this year, we kind of made an exception, if you will, and added in some initial money to start the process of getting form-based zoning in place.
And that's another thanks to Matt Boulanger, because he really has been right out there making sure that we understood what was happening, why and how, and why this was so important. And it was I believe, a unanimous decision on the board.
What's Matt's role with the?
He is our town planner.
Got it.
Yep.
Great. Well, and with a state legislator that's considering more zoning and land use regulation, Act 250 items than I can remember in my time at one point, that's huge.
The part that's, to me, kind of exciting about it is when I looked at some of the literature that Matt provided, was you look at some of the areas that might have one kind of like dominating type of use, and then and I always think of those and go, we're kind of locked in. And form-based zoning really, or code really opens up the door, at least from what I was able to see, to say, yep, it was single use now, but there's a way to get that to a different, again, feel or function.
Yeah, that's great. And that's a big lift for the community to pass that too. So that'll be definitely something for folks to stay tuned into. So you mentioned civic engagement. How do you define the quintessential Winooski citizen, or excuse me, Williston citizen? That was a slip on my behalf. And how do you connect with them? What's that look like for you? How's public participation panning out? Who's showing up for meetings? Are you happy with the amount of feedback you're getting?
Oh, wow.
I get more on a day-to-day basis. I'm a residential and commercial real estate attorney, and my practice happens to be in Williston. So I get to talk and deal with people all day long, and many of them are senior residents across the way that wander in that need a will done. So that's how I get to talk to folks, and I try to make sure that I am as accessible as possible. A lot of people know my dog before they know me. I have a large Great Dane. So for me, that great Williston resident is the one who asks the questions.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't have answers, sometimes I do. Always know where to go to start to get that process rolling. In terms of people showing up at meetings, usually you'll get a group of somebody who's interested in something. It might be somebody who's against a certain development. The gun thing has been quite active on the select board lately. But I know Jeff mentions it often, and I'll give you a moment, but we would love to see more people show up at select board meetings and just see what goes on, but also check out the agenda. If there's something that's important to you, come on in and talk about it during public comment.
There's nothing more frustrating being a select board member than feeling like you're talking about an awfully important thing. Let's take the budget. It's an $11 million budget. I mean, that's a huge amount of money. And the amount of comments we got on it were minimal. And so I beg, if you will, almost for that input. On the other hand, I understand, 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock on a Tuesday evening for many folks is a difficult time to get out of the house, and the kids and the homework and everything that needs to be done and go to a select board member meeting. We are branching out. It sounds like it's a blanket type approach of I assume most of it is social media based, of at least getting information out there so folks have the opportunity to see it, to hopefully say something like, or read it and be like, oh my God, what were they thinking? Or wait a second, that's my neighborhood, or something like that, and get them interested. Lately, Front Porch Forum, there's been a lot of chatter about Williston on Front Porch Forum. Not all the chatter has maybe been great at times, but it's important that communication is happening.
Yeah. And how much of this has to do with the dynamic between residential and commercial and economic development? I think a lot of people around the state view Williston as having a really huge part in the stake of Vermont's commercial economy too, in addition to people who live there. How do you feel like that balance is being struck, and what do you see in terms of balancing it going forward from an economic development and residential standpoint?
For the most part, I feel that it's working fairly well. I can think of a couple of instances where we've had some places that wanted liquor licenses in the evening, for example, a couple of restaurants that wanted to change and tweak, and they hit some resistance with the town. And I was advocating really hard to have some of these fees not waived, but assessed differently to allow, this was a long-term business that wanted to change and do some other things. They just simply didn't have that kind of money to put up front for one thing. So definitely I advocate from a business standpoint. It's good. I think, if anything, I think we probably get more concerns from residents and the growth. I keep looking at you, Jeff, just to go, I don't know if you're agreeing with me, but especially for those of us that live anywhere close to that growth. I live in Southridge. So we see neighborhoods butting up very quickly against us, and people are getting concerned with the traffic coming through the neighborhoods. That's more the concern that I see than I get from commercial, quite frankly.
For quite a while now, I don't know the answer to what's that right balance between residential and commercial growth. I honestly don't. And for a while now, I've been trying to seek out, how do you answer that question? And, is that something maybe the town plan should be answering? And quite often, the response I get maybe from other select board members or town staff, and recently we had a retreat where we pulled in some economists, is, well, how does it feel kind of thing? And another significant piece of it is that commercial aspect, particularly the retail, is very important to Williston when we look at the revenue side of things. Part of the reason why we can have such an affordable, compared to, let's say, the other communities in Chittenden County, an affordable tax rate is because of that local options tax. So what is that balance? And I guess maybe the engineer in me isn't always so good at figuring out how do you assess that. I would love to have more input or a tool of some sort, maybe even through the town plan, to get sort of a sense of where might that balance, at least what is a range in which that balance should be.
That's great. Yeah. And just in our last few seconds here, 30 seconds each, Jeff, keep going. Why should somebody cast a vote for you instead of writing in their best friend on town meeting day?
Well, I'm not sure I have a great answer for that compared to the best friend. Again, experience, interest. I think I do as does Joy, a good job on the select board because I listen. I try to get both sides and make the best decision I can for Williston.
All right. Joy?
Because I'm passionate about keeping Williston a community that people want to be in, want to live in, and want to come to. Again, love public service and love interacting with the community and the town management, and I would be absolutely honored to serve again for another term.
Well, I'm sure the citizens and everybody who does business, works, and visits Williston is extremely appreciative of the service you both do and your willingness to step forward and do it again. So thanks for providing your time and ideas and thoughts tonight and opening up about what excites you about what's next. And that wraps up our conclusion for the town of Williston. Again, you can also watch the budget and ballot item presentations with some of the city staff on CCTV Channel 17's website as well. And don't forget to vote. The town meeting in Williston is at the auditorium on the Tuesday before voting, or excuse me, the Monday night before voting, and then Tuesday you vote at the Armory between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Make sure you're registered to vote, ready to go, and make sure to explore these issues. And remember, the conversation doesn't stop here. You can find all of their email addresses online if you've got follow-up questions, comments, or ideas. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for taking the time to get informed ahead of town meeting day. Hope you have a great evening and happy civic participation time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both
Thanks
for joining us.
moderating.
Yeah, nice job.
Nice job. Thank you.